something feels off. Not broken, not chaotic, just too perfect. Reality behaves like it's been arranged, curated, like someone or something designed it to look natural while hiding the seams. Your senses, your memories, the night sky, they all follow rules. But those rules feel less like discoveries and more like instructions. Some call it physics, others call it math. But deep down, it behaves like code. Everywhere we look, we find elegant patterns that don't need to be there. Constants too precise, equations that just work. And all of them seem built around one strange requirement: conscious observers. Why does the universe behave differently when someone is watching? Why does time feel fluid yet measurable? And why does the world only ever reveal what we're ready to detect? These aren't philosophical questions, they're cracks in the surface. And some of the world's top minds believe they're signs we're not seeing the real thing. Nick Bostrom, Elon Musk, Neil deGrasse Tyson, Max Tegmark, they've all explored the same possibility, that we're not living in reality. We're living in a filter. This isn't a video about sci-fi theories. This is about peeling back the layer that's always been right in front of you. Because once you notice the glitch, you can't unsee it. If you've ever felt like there's more to existence than what we're shown, like something's missing or manipulated, this video is for you. And if that sounds absurd, stay. You might leave with fewer answers and a completely different question. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications. That tells the algorithm you're ready for more videos like this. Let's begin. Let's get one thing straight. This isn't just about science. This is about the strange feeling that reality is incomplete. We go through life assuming that what we see is all there is, but our eyes detect less than 1% of the electromagnetic spectrum. Our ears hear a tiny fraction of available sound, and our brains, they filter out most of the information we receive, not to help us understand the world, but to help us survive it. That means reality, as you know it, is already a lie of omission. You're not seeing the universe. You're seeing a version of it, cropped, compressed, edited. And the deeper science goes, from quantum mechanics to cosmology, the more we realize that everything we thought was fundamental is conditional. Why do atoms behave differently when they're observed? Why is the universe fine-tuned for life when it could have easily been cold, empty, and silent? Why do the laws of physics look suspiciously like lines of code, elegant, recursive, self-referencing? That's where the anthropic principle enters. It suggests that the universe looks the way it does because we're here to observe it. But that's not an explanation. That's a riddle pretending to be an answer. Some thinkers take it further. They argue that the precision of our universe isn't just convenient, it's intentional. Nick Bostrom calls it the simulation hypothesis, the idea that we're not living in a natural universe, but in a carefully constructed one. A digital habitat, a sandbox. And if you think that's absurd, so did a lot of physicists, until the math started lining up, until the cosmic background radiation looked too clean, until even gravity started whispering that something wasn't adding up. This isn't just theory. It's a paradigm shift. A growing number of scientists, philosophers, and technologists are asking, are we real? Or are we just conscious puppets inside a system built to convince us we're free? That's the question we'll explore, layer by layer, in the rest of this video. So before we go deeper, take a breath, because everything you thought was solid might be part of the illusion. Imagine waking up in a world where every detail feels real. The light through your window, the sound of birds, the warmth of your blanket. Now imagine realizing it's all been calculated. The chair you're sitting on might not even exist, at least not until you look at it. Not in full, just the outer shell. The rest simulated on demand. Because why waste energy simulating atoms that no one's observing? This is the logic behind some of the most advanced computer systems we've ever imagined. In video games, distant scenery is blurry or unloaded, rendered only when a player gets close enough. It saves resources. It makes sense. Now, apply that to the universe. Could reality be doing the same? Quantum mechanics has shown us something uncomfortable. Particles behave differently depending on whether they're being observed. A photon chooses a path only when watched. Until then, it exists in a superposition, both here and there, everywhere and nowhere. That doesn't sound like physical behavior. That sounds like optimization. Think about it. Why would the laws of the universe, the foundational rules of existence, change based on perception? Unless perception is the point. If the universe waits for someone to look before collapsing probabilities into certainty, then observers aren't just part of reality. They're the trigger of it, and that shifts everything. It means reality is not something that simply is, it's something that responds to you. Now that might sound poetic, until you realize it's testable. Experiments like the double slit have shown this effect over and over, and we still don't fully understand why or how, but there's more. Zoom out from the microscopic to the cosmic, and the pattern doesn't go away. Instead, it scales up. The universe is expanding at just the right rate to allow galaxies to form. The force of gravity is exactly weak enough not to crush us, and strong enough to bind the cosmos. The electromagnetic force is calibrated to allow stars to burn, atoms to bond, life to emerge. If any of these constants varied by even a hair's width, stars wouldn't form, planets wouldn't exist, we wouldn't be here. It's not just a lucky draw, it's a cosmic jackpot, over and over again. And when you win the lottery once, you call it chance. But when you win it 100 times in a row, you start asking questions. That's why many physicists believe something strange is going on. Either there are infinite universes out there, and we just happen to be in the right one, or we're not in a universe at all. We're in a simulation tuned for conscious experience. A system not designed by chance, but by intention. You don't need to simulate everything, just what's necessary to convince the user they're in a real world. Sound familiar? Now, let's take that further. In computing, there's a concept called lazy rendering. The idea that you only process what's being actively used. Not only is this efficient, it's necessary for large-scale systems. The brain works like this too, filtering out 99% of the sensory data around you. It literally hides reality from your awareness, so you can function without being overwhelmed. That means two things. One, you're already living inside a filtered version of reality. Two, you wouldn't notice if it was being edited. You might argue, but simulations are fiction. They're digital stories, not physics. But here's the twist. Physics might be the story. Math isn't just a tool we use to describe reality. It might be the source code behind it. Equations like Einstein's or Maxwell's don't just predict how the world works. They define it with eerie precision. There's no mess, no exception, no chaos, just clean, elegant patterns. That's not randomness. That's architecture. And that brings us to the real question. If reality behaves like a simulation, who or what built it, and why? Maybe we don't need to know who the architect is. Maybe it doesn't matter. Because even if we never find out who built the simulation, we might still learn how it works, and more importantly, what it's hiding. Consider this: the speed of light. In our universe, nothing can move faster than it. It's a hard limit, a cosmic speed cap. But why should such a limit exist at all? What purpose does it serve? In computing, Limits are everywhere. Processing power, memory, frame rate. To keep a system stable, you have to cap certain values. Light speed may not be a cosmic truth. It might be a system requirement. The same goes for quantum uncertainty. It's not that particles don't have definite positions. It's that you're not allowed to know both the position and the velocity at the same time. That's Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. Why? Because in a system optimized for efficiency, complete transparency might break the illusion. And illusions matter. You don't simulate every star in the sky. You simulate just enough of them, just well enough that intelligent beings believe they live in an infinite universe. Even the observable universe, the part we can actually see, ends in a horizon we'll never cross. Beyond it, who knows? Maybe nothing. Or maybe the rest hasn't been rendered yet. This is where things start to feel less like speculation and more like deduction. Imagine designing a simulation so advanced that its inhabitants never realize they're inside it. What would you need? First, you'd need a physics engine, a system of rules that govern matter, energy, and time. Ours works incredibly well. Second, you'd need conscious entities, beings capable of thought, perception, and curiosity. That's us. And third, you'd need a boundary, a limit to what can be perceived, so no one ever finds the edge. We have that too. The Planck length, the cosmic horizon, the fact that our best microscopes and telescopes can only see so far before reality blurs into uncertainty. It's almost too perfect. Now, let's talk about time. We think of it as a river flowing forward, but in physics, time is just another coordinate, like width or height. The laws of nature don't care which way it flows. They work in both directions. So why do we experience time as linear? Because our consciousness is structured that way. Because our biology, our memory, only stores the past, not the future. That's not physics, that's programming. Our experience of time is not a universal law. It's a narrative, a constraint placed on observers to make sense of a simulation running frame by frame. And here's where it gets eerie. If time is a narrative, then your memories are not records of the past. They're data entries, editable, selectable, and possibly generated. How would you know if they weren't? You wouldn't. You'd trust. You only ever see what the system lets you see. Now combine this with another oddity of consciousness, the sense of self. You think of yourself as a stable identity, a you that's been watching your life unfold since the beginning. But neuroscience suggests otherwise. The brain is a network of competing impulses, sensations, memories, and narratives. The self is an illusion, a story your mind tells itself over and over, so you don't go insane from the chaos. A story within a story. In a simulation, this is crucial, because without a persistent sense of self, your character falls apart. You lose the thread. The illusion breaks. So the simulation maintains the illusion of memory, identity, continuity, all so the player keeps playing. Are we the player, or are we the NPC? If this is a game, who's holding the controller? Now here's the strangest part. Maybe no one is. Maybe the simulation runs on autopilot. A loop started long ago by a civilization so advanced they don't even need to monitor it anymore. They just let it run. Watch what happens. See what emerges. Maybe we are the experiment, or the entertainment, or the ancestors they wanted to preserve. Either way, the result is the same. You live in a world that behaves like it's made of atoms, but feels like it's made of thought. A universe that follows equations, but obeys awareness. And the more you look, the more you realize something isn't right. Something is hiding in plain sight, and maybe it always has been. Let's rewind. If the universe is a simulation, and your senses are part of the simulation, then how do you ever know what's real? You don't. But here's the kicker. You never did. Your brain has never touched the outside world. It lives in a sealed vault inside your skull. All it gets is signals, electrical impulses, chemical reactions, shadows of reality. Everything you know, every face you recognize, every memory you hold, was reconstructed in darkness. So even without a simulation, your experience is already virtual. But if reality is a rendering, who controls the renderer? Some say it doesn't matter, that reality is what works, not what's true. But that idea crumbles the moment we consider freedom, choice, morality. Because if you're just a character inside a closed system running on a script, then what does it mean to choose? Maybe the feeling of free will is the most complex illusion of all. Now, let's talk about glitches. People report strange patterns in life, improbable coincidences, repeated numbers, déjà vu, lost time. Most write it off as tricks of the brain, but some patterns feel mechanical, cold, like the system slipped. A person dies, then shows up alive on the news. A city you've never visited feels familiar. A memory shared by thousands that never actually happened. These anomalies are often explained as false memory or collective confusion. But a more uncomfortable answer is they're not mistakes. They're resets you weren't supposed to notice. Now, let's go deeper. If the simulation is real and you're inside it, can you break out? The short answer? Probably not. But you can test the boundaries. You can study the edges, the moments when reality stops behaving like a neutral space and starts reacting to you. There are accounts, some anecdotal, others researched, of reality bending around human attention, people manifesting improbable outcomes, changing their lives in ways that defy logic. Skeptics call it randomness. Believers call it the law of attraction. But what if it's neither? What if it's the system responding to input, just like a computer game reacts to controller movements? Maybe consciousness is the controller. You focus, the world responds, not always in the way you expect, but always in a way that keeps you invested. And that's key, because any good simulation has to keep its subjects engaged, but not overwhelmed, curious, but not panicked, questioning, but not escaping. So it rewards inquiry, but only up to a point. You get glimpses, patterns, just enough to feel like you're getting closer. But every answer leads to more questions. That's not failure, that's design. Now imagine a civilization so advanced it could simulate entire histories. Not just people, but cultures, wars, love stories, revolutions, all generated, all evolving. You'd want those simulations to be convincing. So you'd build in myths, secrets, conflicts. You'd make them ask, where did we come from? What happens after we die? Because those questions create depth. They make the story real. That's us. We are characters with curiosity, trapped in a mystery we were programmed to chase. And if you think that's bleak, it's not. Because it means your mind matters more than you thought. It means your thoughts shape your world, not in a metaphorical way, but as direct input into the system. And if that's true, your attention is your power. What you notice grows. What you ignore fades, like code responding to a user. So maybe, just maybe, this isn't a prison. It's a playground, an interface, a test. Or maybe it's a seed, a place where consciousness learns to evolve, grow, mature. Maybe the real world isn't outside the simulation. Maybe the simulation is the womb, and what comes next is birth. The question is, will you wake up, or will you keep playing? Now, let's confront something darker. If the simulation is real and you're inside it, then what happens when you die? Maybe Nothing. Maybe the simulation ends and the lights go out. But maybe death is just a transition from one system to another. A data migration, an upload, the end of one script and the start of another. We assume death is a failure of biology. But what if it's just the final function call? Every major religion in history talks about life after death, in one form or another. Heaven, rebirth, consciousness merging with a higher plane. Are they myths or primitive metaphors for something deeper? Maybe they were our ancestors' way of describing a truth their language couldn't express, that reality continues even after the avatar expires. Because if consciousness is the only thing the simulation really needs to be convincing, maybe that's the one thing that persists. Not the body, not the memories, just the awareness, raw, untethered, ready for the next level. Which brings us to a terrifying possibility. What if you've done this before? What if you've lived 100 lives, 1,000 scenarios? What if the simulation isn't linear, but cyclical, and every time you die, you forget, you reset, but something remains, a trace, a feeling, a pattern you can't explain, déjà vu, unreasonable fear, an instant connection with someone you've never met. These could be echoes, fragments of code carried over between sessions, and maybe that's the real secret. Maybe the simulation isn't trying to trap you, it's trying to teach you. Maybe this is a school, and every life is a lesson. Sometimes the lesson is love, sometimes it's loss, sometimes it's silence. And until you learn what you came here to learn, you come back over and over again. Now think about your own life, the things that keep repeating, the situations you keep facing, the pain that won't go away. These might not be glitches, they might be assignments. And once you face them, truly face them, the script changes. You start noticing the seams. You start spotting the patterns. Reality stops feeling random and starts feeling personal. That's the moment the simulation starts to crack. That's the beginning of awakening. But here's the paradox. The system is designed to resist being seen. The closer you get to understanding it, the more it adapts, the more questions you ask, the more it buries the answers behind symbols, distractions, and noise. That's not a bug, that's protection, because knowledge is power, and power can destroy a system if handled carelessly. So it gives you a choice: forget and live comfortably, or remember and face the unknown. Most choose the first, but if you're still here, still listening, maybe you're part of the second group. Maybe you're ready to see what lies beyond the veil. But don't expect a door to open. Don't wait for a guide or a sign. The system won't hand you the keys. You have to build them. Through awareness, through observation, through silence, through thought. The simulation isn't broken. It's waiting for you to notice, waiting for you to question, waiting for you to stop playing the character and become the player. So now the question isn't, are we in a simulation? It's, what will you do with that knowledge? Will you change the way you live? Will you treat your mind as the interface? Will you use your attention like a tool? Or will you go back to sleep, pretend none of this matters, and let the simulation carry you gently to the next checkpoint? You have every right to, but somewhere in you, something knows. This world is too perfect, too scripted, too convenient. And that voice in your head, the one asking questions, the one that never quite shuts up, that might be the one real thing inside this entire system. Don't silence it. Listen, and maybe, just maybe, the simulation will start listening back. You've seen the signs, the patterns, the precision, the silence beneath the noise. And now, a new question emerges, one you weren't supposed to ask. If this is a simulation, what else are they simulating? What if your memories, your history, your entire past are just placeholders? What if the real manipulation isn't outside, in physics or space, but inside your own mind? What if your thoughts are not entirely yours? Because if they can simulate a universe, they can simulate a belief, an identity, a reality inside a reality. And if that's true, the next question isn't, what is the universe hiding? It's, what did it already erase? Maybe you've never had access to the full story. Maybe the truth isn't hidden in the stars. Maybe it's hidden in the things you forgot to question. There's more, much more, and it starts with the next video, the one that's about to show up on your screen. Don't click it out of habit. Click it because something inside you is awake now, and it wants to remember. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.